The following podcast topics are not for minor age listeners. Please take the time to skip to another podcast if your children are present. If you are an adult faint at heart or a victim, please be advised that discussions in this episode contain topics about SA and other conversations that may be triggering. Thank you.
You were on the right track, you were on the right path. And black door in the forest isn't here to taunt us, cause it's going nowhere. You gotta move on, cause shadows.
Welcome back to The Trade. This is Gina Beck.
This is Drew Williams.
Thank you for listening, liking, commenting, and subscribing. We appreciate y'all, especially all the love on all the other streaming platforms. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and like always, thank you guys again for the continued support, the continued engagement, and that hashtag Banana Cats.
How are you, Drew?
I'm good, G. How are you?
It's been a crazy beginning of the year, but let's get into the episode. We'll talk about that later.
I'm glad we're back. Kind of excited to talk about what we got planned.
Definitely. So I was just, scrolling through good old TikTok, right? And it got thrown in my face that something called Sound of Freedom was about to drop on the 4th. And it was like 2 or 3 days before it was about to drop. I messaged Drew right away and I showed him this trailer I had watched. It said that Mel Gibson had created it. I was like, it was all hyped up in the comments. I had seen it everywhere after I saw it that one time. I was like, we have to go watch this. So it turns out like Mel Gibson has a small hand in the edit, I guess. He claims the only part he had in it was just the edit, the final edit. So people are saying, he helped create it and stuff like that. It's kind of a little bit of misinformation, which happens, but he, I think, is friends with the guy that it is about, Tim Ballard, and he put out a video promoting it for him along with Tony Robbins and a bunch of other celebrities that are friends with him. They're on like their own little marketing run. They're on all these podcasts. So I just wanted to say that because that was a huge reason why I went to go see it. I didn't see anything about Tim Ballard, or I didn't Google it either, but I just saw Mel Gibson everywhere and I was like, oh, he created some legendary movies, and really well put together movies. So I was like, this has got to be great, especially about child trafficking, something that we're very passionate about. If you guys don't know what Sound of Freedom is, you should. It's everywhere. But if you don't, it's a movie that was created and co-written by a guy named Alejandro Monteverde. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong, but it's based off a character, based on a true story off of a character named Tim Ballard. So after he rescued a boy from ruthless child traffickers, a federal agent learns the boy's sister is still captive and decides to embark on a dangerous mission to save her. So with time running out, he quits his job and he goes into the Colombian jungle, putting his life on the line to free her from what could be death. I don't want to like really talk about the movie entirely. That's pretty much the gist of it because I think people should see it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I almost walked out when I realized the movie was about Tim Ballard. If you're a longtime listener, you know that I think Operation Underground Railroad is full of shit. And Tim Ballard is not a good guy, and he is a liar. But the movie is really good. Like the thing about it is, if they just would have left his name out and not had the I kept referring to it as a circle jerk of Tim Ballard's ego. The movie would be really good. The first hour of the movie is really good. Like everyone should go see this. But I still stand on the fact that
Definitely.
if they would have just left Tim Ballard out, it would have been so much better. Because I feel like the conversation is more about him than the actual subject.
Right when I seen his name on the screen, I knew what you're I knew what you were gonna think. I knew because of what we've talked about on this podcast and even, personal conversations. I was like, "Oh, how did I not know this?" Like his name just came up a little on red, like a little red writing, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And after that, I definitely saw the movie differently. You can't blame me because of what I know. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I mean, we have episodes that we can link in the description. And I, I was gonna ask Drew anyway because I think his input is solid. I admire his opinion on a lot of things, and I think he's a truth teller. So I think why, you know, why do you think that?
There is another group we used to be, I guess, friends with. I'll say it that way. Named American Crime Journal is their work. It really should be called Tim Ballard's Diaries because that's all they talk about. But he has done a lot of good work when it comes to exposing OUR, Tim Ballard. So I personally believe that this movie is based on a story that Tim Ballard has retold multiple times, and it's changed multiple times over the year. It's a girl named Liliana. It's not going to really ruin the movie or anything for you. Like I said, go watch the movie. It's still good. But Liliana was a girl that was a victim of horrific trafficking, and she rescued herself. And Tim Ballard has inserted him and his group, Operation Underground Railroad, into this girl's story and a bunch of other people's stories apparently. And I'll link episode 77 where we talk about, I think it was the first time we talked about Tim Ballard. And I do encourage you to go check out American Crime Journal if you want to learn more about Tim Ballard. The guy that runs it, Damian Moore, is a piece of shit, but he does do good work, and I don't think he's a pedo, so he does do good work when it comes to exposing him. Tim, he makes money off of this, and the entire thing I feel like is always this. We're gonna have some of our conservative listeners, but I feel like he's like this white savior complex. Like I think there's a lot of those things in the movie too, but it is making a wave. It's getting people to talk about everything again. I just wish Tim would have been left out of it. But that's my only gripe. If you really, really want to learn more about Operation Underground Railroad and Tim Ballard's lies and manipulation, take the time to go read some other articles about them. We can maybe post some in our stories on Instagram because YouTube's being really weird about leaving links that lead away from YouTube now, so we really can't put our sources the same. I could leave them in our Buzzsprout descriptions. So I'll leave them there. You'll be able to find some of that stuff there. Like I said, this is drawing away from the actual subject. Is the movie's good. And it talks about a lot of really crazy stuff. There's some cheesy acting in it, but then there's some really good actors. I think all the Spanish speaking actors did a phenomenal job. The first weirdo that they show, I think that guy did a great. I thought it was going to be more about him initially. It's got some really cool concepts and ideas. And it's just the Tim Ballard aspect does take away from it. But I I haven't been to the movies in a few years, paid for a movie, and I went by myself and I enjoyed it. It was a good time. I cried. There's definitely parts where I cried, and I think that's kind of
I
expected if you
definitely cried.
have.
Yeah, it's emotional. Be prepared for how emotional it gets because it's stuff that you know something that's mentioned. I'll say that ordinary people, people with ordinary jobs who live their lives, have kids, have families, busy, stressed. They don't really have these conversations or talk about these things. The news does not highlight this stuff like they should because of how uncomfortable and disgusting and out there all of this can be, I think. So, or other reasons too that we, can talk about why they don't talk about this stuff. But it's just something that's, I think, an uncomfortable topic for people. So I think this movie is good for literally teenagers to watch. I think it's safe for families to sit down and watch and then have a conversation after it. You know, it's not, it doesn't show too much that's like, close your eyes. And I know when I was growing up, I'd sit through movies and have a parent or a guardian close my eyes. So if you can sit through a movie, and close your kids' eyes, like, I'm pretty sure they could watch something like this. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
any of the
But it's
scenes that
actually
are
informative.
any of the scenes that get graphic, it cuts right before it would actually get
Mhm.
graphic, so you just kind of get the idea of what's going on. Gina did bring up a good point, though, a criticism. I don't know if she remembers this when we first talked about it, but the positions that the directors put some of those children in, um, it's comparable to Cuties, some of it. And people probably don't want to hear that, but when you really think about some of those scenes, they had to use kids. There's some questionable stuff, maybe not as far as like Cuties went, but definitely if you're outraged about children being in those type of situations, there's some shots in there that are definitely questionable on that topic.
Right. And I never really thought of it that way until I heard people criticizing Cuties and I heard some perspectives. And then I was like, they're right. They're right. You're making a movie, but you're also doing exactly what you're making the movie about. And it's like, I don't know. You never know what's going on behind the scenes until obviously years later, as we all know with these documentaries or people who come forward. Nobody's really comfortable or are able to come forward right away. So you don't even truly know if, anything happens behind the scenes until years later. But you can't help but think about that. And so in movies like this, like specifically, you know, right when something's about to happen and the child is in the same scene and then it cuts really fast, but it's still in your mind that like they made, like, these did these kids not know? It made me wonder, how do you go about making a movie like that and then have it, you if you watched it or if you're going to watch it, you'll see, even though it cuts the scene, it leads up to something, right? And so it's like, I don't know. These kids are crying. It's a very emotional movie. Like, how do they not know really what's going on? So I just feel for kids too, because hopefully they're being talked to and behind the scenes things are going okay for them because it is heavy. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those odd movies that's rated PG-13, but it's a very, very heavy movie, and you're probably gonna cry.
I
At
don't
least
think
tear
people
up.
think of that, yeah, when they're watching like movies like that. I don't know. I didn't really think of that until I heard other people's perspectives. So I can imagine other people are not thinking that either.
I'd be interested in some of our viewers' feedback, how they felt about it, see where it led them. I don't like it's one of those things where we could talk, but I don't want to spoil the movie. It's not even been out that long, so uh,
Right. We could treading lightly on what we say because I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't seen it. But at the end of the day, despite who made it, who had a hand in it, who did what, it's worth watching, worth paying for, and I'm really glad that it's getting the traction it is. And I think without, certain platforms, it wouldn't. So I'm actually like really grateful that people are clipping it and talking about it and letting it do its thing because I I think without the viralness that it's having and the people that are talking about it, specifically really big celebrities are talking about it. I think it's just really cool to see, and I hope it sticks. Something that I am worried about is it's just people walk away and continue their ordinary lives, which there's nothing wrong with that. But at the
which they
same time,
even
if people
they,
aren't talking about this stuff,
they
go
even
ahead.
they even kind of address that in the movie about people
Hmm.
not wanting to really address the subject because it's so uncomfortable. There's a lot of positive things in that movie that way more than I can say negative. But the Tim Ballard thing did irk me.
Yeah. Yeah. stuff that we've been saying for years was in that movie. I was like, and watch it till the very end. There's there's some important information. If you don't see it as just a movie, you should go into it knowing that stuff like this actually goes on, and you should, if you have children, know when the right time is to like talk to them about stuff like this so that they're aware. I think we're gonna end it there. I think you guys should definitely go watch it. Give us your opinions on it. If you liked it, if you thought it was too much or it needed more, or whatever. And I think hopefully, they make another one, not just focusing on like Thailand, but they should focus on other places too, and they should tell other stories that's based on true events like this in detail, whether it's true or not. Also, stuff like that actually happens every day. I think people in child trafficking make more money than the airline industry and the planes that we take every day. That's like a $32 billion industry. All of the airlines put together. Child trafficking, it was 42, 48 billion up to 150 million or billion,
Human
excuse me.
trafficking in
So
general.
it's like, in general, like, there's a lot of slaves still to this day. So just be safe. And the things that we've been saying all of this time it's real stuff. And I'm really glad that it got put into a like 2-hour movie, that's
Absolutely.
being shown to everybody. So it's really amazing. And it feels good that people are talking about this stuff. I hope it just lasts, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Until next time, Banana Cats.
Banana Cats. Much love. Peace.